live and I'm building my first draft. Let me know what you think. I'm answering all comments on this video and get this one to 500 likes and subscribe to the channel. Starting off between the sticks then with the goalkeepers. I've had a look at the pool of goalkeepers at 4.5 million and there aren't many there that I find that attractive. And when I was building my initial watch list video last week, I'd picked out Onana and Leno, who've both come in at 5 million. And I am still tempted to go with one of this pair. Now I am looking towards Onana because I feel like Manchester United are improving in the window and I'm expecting some better performances from them. So I do feel like at the moment, as things stand, it's worth spending 5 over 4.5 on the goalkeeper if you can do. And I will of course have a 4 million backup on my bench. Moving into the defence then, and I am looking to select the second most expensive defender in the game, Arsenal's Ben White, coming in at 6.5 million, but he's perhaps the only nailed Arsenal defender for game week 1, having had the likes of Saliba and Gabriel with big summers, and at left back plenty of rotation. I do think he's worth the money given how solid that Arsenal defence was last season and the way they finished the season as well. I think he's got to be a key consideration for our teams. Now I may be spending a little bit too much on my defence here, but I am going to go for Spurs fullback Pedro Porro. 5.5 million I think is a great price for him, considering last season he finished at above that price point. He could easily have been 6. I think we've got away with one here. I mean, the Spurs fixtures could be better, let's be honest, but we do need to consider the fact that Porro is absolutely fixture-proof. He got so many attacking returns last season, plenty of assists, 3 goals as well. But we also need to think about the fact he was top for shots among defenders. So arguably, he underperformed in terms of his attacking threat, and he does like to hoover up those bonus points when he's in the attacking returns. Now, my third defender, again, I'm spending here. I've picked out James Tarkowski at Everton at 5 million. Now, this could be Branthwaite if he's still an Everton player. But I really like the Everton defence because they keep lots of clean sheets. Sean Dyche's defence have always been great investments in FPL. And I am looking to pair him with a Crystal Palace defender. Currently got Mitchell on my bench, because these two rotate really nicely. Over the first 6 game weeks of the season, rotating this pair, you get Brighton at home, West Ham at home, Bournemouth at home, Leicester at home, Leicester away, and then probably Palace at home for Tarkowski when the two face each other in game week 6. And I really think that, you know, there's plenty of clean sheets to be hoovered up between this pair there, and a few attacking returns as well, which probably only leaves enough money for a 4 million budget defender on the bench. Now, I haven't absolutely locked down who this is going to be yet. I need to properly delve into the price point before making that decision. Normally, there's one that develops during pre-season, so that is a bit of a placeholder right now because it's too early to say. But on my new podcast episode on Monday, I will be revealing my latest draft with the full bench.
FPL Green Room is a brand new Fantasy Premier League podcast with me, Gianni Battici, and my TV wife,
me, Holly Shand. Every Monday morning, we will guide you through the upcoming game week with my numbers game
and my eye test report. You'll also get behind the scenes gossip direct from the Green Room. Do you want to know who the most famous person we've met at Sky Sports News is?
Or how long he spends in makeup? Ask these key questions when leaving a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts.
And don't forget to follow the show.
Back to building this first draft then, and spoiler alert, I mean, you probably saw it on the thumbnail. I am going to be going with Erling Haaland in my forward line. I know he's 15 million, the most expensive any player has ever been in FPL, but I still feel like it's worth it. If you look at any of the premium players in FPL, look at their price, think, if they're an extra million, would I still get them? Probably your answer would be yes. And, you know, when I put together that initial watch list last week, check out that video, by the way, if you haven't already, I said that Haaland was a no-brainer. He'd be a lock in all of our teams. Points per match, second to Palmer last season. Very similar numbers in terms of points per match to the previous season. Remembering he did miss a little bit of time off with injury. but he's got a full pre-season under his belt, and we have to bear that in mind when we're picking him. You look at the other premiums, the likes of Palmer, Saka, De Bruyne, Foden. They've had very busy summers. Haaland hasn't, and he's going to be raring to go. He started game week 1 of his 2 previous seasons with a brace. He's an absolute robot. And yes, you can look at the likes of Palmer, Saka, think, well, you can save 5 million there easily. But when it comes to captaincy, Haaland is the one that we can trust week in, week out. And it may get down the line. And I think once people see Haaland's pre-season form, a lot of managers are suddenly going to be doing a U-turn and bringing Haaland into their game week 1 teams. Obviously, I will be experimenting with different drafts without Haaland, but certainly for this first draft, I want him in, and I'm going to build from there. Now, obviously, to build this Haaland draft, there has to be compromises somewhere, and I feel like it's the midfield in this first draft that is perhaps a little bit lacking. The main selection here is Odegaard over Saka. I'm looking at Arsenal's content on socials at the moment. Odegaard is in pre-season training. Saka's probably off on his holidays. 1.5 million difference between them. And in FPL terms, I don't think there was that big a difference between them last season. Odegaard was 3rd for chances created across all players in the Premier League. But one thing I need to scout out in pre-season is Arsenal's setup and his positioning. Because when Havertz started playing the false 9 role later towards the end of last season, we did see Odegaard a little bit deeper, although it didn't seem to hamper his output. But I really want to see Odegaard in that 10 role. If we see Arsenal sign an out-and-out number 9, then it could be that really plays to Odegaard. So it's one to monitor in pre-season, that's for sure. The next selection in my midfield, well, I couldn't afford Son at 10 million, who I'd scouted out. So I've gone with Maddison at 7.5 million. Again, I would really like to see him prominent in the Spurs system in pre-season, playing the 10 role. We know again that Spurs are after a number 9 in the window, and I think that would be massive for Maddison and his set piece involvement. We saw last pre-season he was having a great relationship with Kane, then off Kane went, and that really hindered him. So another one to keep an eye on. I think I did start last pre-season with Maddison as well, so let's see if he stays for now. But a 7.5, I don't think that's a bad price point for him. And I've also got Brentford's Brian Mbeumo, who comes in at 7 million, a slight increase from last season. Now, this hinges on whether Tony is still a Brentford player come game week 1. Big rumours that he's looking at a move elsewhere. That would mean that Mbeumo's playing more advanced, that he's potentially on penalties as well. Brentford have signed a new striker in the window, so again in pre-season I need to see Mbeumo heavily involved in the set pieces and on penalties and converting those penalties before I commit. But he was a bit of a game breaker at the start of last season, and I feel like there's the potential for that to come round again, especially with a full pre-season under his belt, fully fit. And then the final midfielder here is going to be a 3-4-3 formation, because I feel like there's too many forwards to pick from not to go with 3. Is Nottingham Forest Morgan Gibbs-White. Looks like he's pledged his allegiance to Forest during pre-season. He is the talisman of the side on a lot of set pieces, including penalties. Again, I'm going to have to watch him in pre-season. But a solid opening fixtures for Forest. Bournemouth at home, Southampton away, Wolves at home, the opening 3. I think he could be a nice differential. I'm kind of looking at those first 3 game weeks in isolation, because after that, we then get an international break. Moving on to the forward line then, and who is going to partner Haaland. Now, I've gone with Newcastle United's Alexander Isak, 8.5 million. I was expecting him to be more expensive than that, given he scored 21 goals last season and he's got so much potential. Again, he's a player that needs that pre-season under his belt, because he did have a few injury issues last season, so it's quite staggering that he got those 21 goals. Now, he is a little bit of a placeholder. Watkins, again, a massive consideration here, but Watkins 0.5 million more, has been at the Euros, so I need to see him back at Villa, back in pre-season training, starting some friendlies before game week 1, before I maybe make the switch, but there's certainly potential there. And also I'm looking at Solanke, who again is rumoured in the transfer window, potentially with a move away from Bournemouth, but 19 goals last season, 7.5 million, I don't think is a bad price point. Now, there are cheaper options in the forward line that I could go with, you know, like João Pedro or Muniz. So they're players I'm considering. That would give me funds to spend in the midfield, because there's no Chelsea players in here. There's no room for Cole Palmer. There's no Watkins. There's no Mo Salah. I want to see how he beds in under Arne Slot, what sort of position he's playing, whether he's still on penalties. They're the key things I need to know from him. So there's lots of flexibility here, but this does use that £100 million budget. So this is what you can afford if you're going with Haaland in your side. As I said then, I am going to be answering all comments on this video, so make sure you let me know what you think of this first draft. Let's get it to 500 likes as well. It was really close on the last one, and make sure you subscribed, because my next video I'll be going through all of those FPL rule changes and how that could change our strategy for the upcoming season. Thank you for watching.